welcome to another video lesson. Today I want to talk about 7th chords, and I want to break them down on a single string so that it's easier to understand how they're built, and I'm going to show a corresponding chord voicing for each one as we go. So I'm going to cover a lot of them. We have our 5 main types: our major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, half diminished 7, and fully diminished 7. And then there's a couple of other ones. There's the dominant with a flat 5, dominant with a sharp 5. There's also the minor with a major 7, and then the diminished with a major 7. So I'm going to go over all of these with corresponding voices. So here we go. Let's jump in. So starting with the major 7 voicing. This is E major 7. I'm playing the 2nd fret on the 4th string, and I'm barring the 4th fret on the first 3 strings. So in this arrangement I have 1, 5, major 7, and then the 3rd on top. Because of the way the guitar is set up, we don't have a lot of ways to play close voicings where we're playing the exact intervals like thirds, stacking them in thirds like you could on a piano. We can do it this way, where I have my fingers in a line, starting on E at the 14th fret of the 4th string, and then going back the 13th fret of the 3rd string, the 12th fret of the 2nd string, and the 11th fret of the 1st string. That makes a stacked thirds version or voicing of the E major 7 chord. But this is the voicing that I'm using for now, and I'm going to be using this position for all of the different chords that correspond to these 7th chords. So the major 7 is starting with a major 3rd, so I'm going from the open 1st string, and then I'm going to play the G sharp at the 4th fret of the 1st string, and this is the major 3rd. Then to get up to the 5th, we go a minor 3rd, so 3 more frets up to the 7th fret, and then the major 7 is the 11th fret at D sharp here, and so we're a half step away from E again. So the arpeggio on one string looks like this. So and then I'm going to play the octave E, then I'm going to go back down, the major 7, the 5, the 3, the 1, and then here's my major 7 voicing. So again, major 7, 4th fret, 7th fret, 11th fret, octave at the 12th fret, 11th fret, major 7, 7th fret, the 5th, 4th fret, the 3rd, and open, which is the root note, or major 7 voicing. So the next 7th chord that I'm going to cover is the dominant 7th. So this changes just by moving the 7th, the D sharp, down a half step to make it a flat 7 at D natural. So now the arpeggio is open, 4th fret, which is the major 3rd, the 5 of the chord at the 7th fret, and then the 10th fret, which is D, the flat 7, and then the octave E, back down, flat 7, 5, 3, 1. And then the corresponding voicing is going to be the same as this major 7, except that this note, the 7th of the chord, which is on the 4th fret of the 2nd string, is going to move down to the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. Now we have an E dominant 7 chord. So again, the arpeggio and then the chord, open, 4th fret, 7th fret, 10th fret, 12th fret, 10th, 7th fret, 4th fret, open, and then the dominant chord. So next I'm going to go to the minor 7 chord. I'm going to cover the other altered dominant 7th chords after I'm done with the 5 main types. So this is the next of what I consider the main types of 7th chords, and this is just lowering the 3rd from the dominant chord down a half step. So now this is a minor 3rd. So this is our G natural, which is the minor 3rd of E. So going from E for the minor 7 chord, we're going to go open, E, 3rd fret, G, which is the flat 3rd of the chord, B at the 7th fret, which is the 5th, D, which is the flat 7, and then E, which is our octave, back down, 10th fret, 7th fret, 3rd fret, open, and the corresponding chord, from the dominant 7th chord, you just take this top note, which is the 3rd, and you lower that by a half step, barring your 2nd finger to catch both the 1st and 2nd string at the 3rd fret. You can alternately play this with 2 fingers up top, like that. So I have my 2nd finger on the 2nd string and 3rd finger on the 1st string to make that minor 7 voicing. So here's the arpeggio followed by the voicing. So open, 3rd fret, 7th fret, the 5th of the chord, 10th fret, the flat 7, octave at the 12th fret, 10th fret, 7th fret, 3rd fret, open. And then minor 7 chord voicing. The next of the main 5, this is the 4th of the primary 5, this is the half diminished 7th chord. So in this one, all you're doing is you're moving the minor 7's 5th down a half step. So instead of playing that natural 5th, the perfect 5th, the B natural, we're going to move it down a half step to B flat. So now we have a diminished triad, which is E, G, B flat, and then we're going to play the flat 7, D, and that is an interval of a major 3rd from the flat 5 up to the flat 7, and that's what makes this a half diminished. So it's a diminished triad with the minor 7 or the flat 7. So the voicing that goes along with this is just like the minor 7, except we're going to lower that 5th. So I like to play it like this, where I'm using my 1st finger to play the root note, E on the 4th string 2nd fret, and then I'm barring with my 2nd finger across the first 3 strings at the 3rd fret. And this is a half diminished voicing. So the arpeggio is open, 3rd fret, 6th fret, 10th fret, 12th fret, 10th fret, 6th fret, 3rd fret, open. And then you can see I use my 3rd finger sometimes. Moving on, the next is the fully diminished 7 chord, and this one has a double flat 7, or what really is the 6th of the scale if we're thinking in a major scale. So it's the natural 6th or the double flat 7, and so what it actually is a 7th chord that's made up of all minor 3rd intervals. So it's starting at E, going a minor 3rd to G, and then another minor 3rd to B flat, 6th fret, then another minor 3rd to the 6, C sharp, or the double flat 7, D flat, or whatever. So that, if you'll notice that each of these intervals is a minor 3rd, so that gives the diminished chord, diminished 7th chord, a unique sound among all the chords. So the voicing for this, if we go from the half diminished chord, we're just going to lower this note down a half step. Now we've got a fully diminished 7th chord voicing. One of the cool things you may know about this fully diminished 7th chord is that all of the inversions of the chord are with the same exact voicing. So if I just move this up a minor 3rd, I'm playing all of the inversions of that fully diminished 7th chord. Makes it really easy to do that on the guitar. With a chord like a major 7, every one of the inversions looks drastically different and feels very different. So you have to practice those individually. But the diminished 7th chord, don't have to practice different voicings, they're all the same. And the same is true if I have any other fully diminished 7th chord anywhere on the guitar. So that's a neat thing about that chord. So those are the 5 main types or primary types as I think about them. You have your major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, flat 5, or half diminished. It's the same chord. And then fully diminished 7. So there's a couple more that I'm going to show you. The dominant chord has a couple of variations. So the first one I'm going to go over is the dominant 7 flat 5. So as it sounds, it's just a dominant arpeggio. But we take the fifth, which is B, and we lower it to B flat. So now the third is only a whole step away from the flat 5, and then we have a major third between the flat 5 and the flat 7. So now our chord voicing from the dominant chord, we just lower this fifth and we bar with the second finger on the second and third strings to make dominant flat 5. So the arpeggio followed by the chord is open, 4th fret, 6th fret, 10th fret, 12th, 10, 6, 4, open. Or another way to different fingering. You can do it any way you like. So that's the dominant with a flat 5. The other dominant variation that I'm going to show you is dominant with a sharp 5. So just like the flat 5, we take the fifth, but instead of lowering it a half step, we raise it by a half step. So now it's a C. So now we have E, G sharp, C at the 8th fret, D at the 10th fret, E at the 12th, 10th, 8th, 4th, open. So this is actually an augmented triad with a flat 7. And back to our dominant chord shape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these two fingers, my 3rd and 4th finger. My 4th finger is going to go to the 3rd string at the 5th fret, and the 3rd finger is going to go to the 1st string at the 4th fret. This is a bit of a tricky shape to play. It's a little bit hard, but that's our dominant with a sharp 5. I have two more chords to show you. These are lesser used, but also very interesting sounding 7th chords. So the first one is going to be a major 7 sharp 5, which is an augmented triad with a major 7. So the last chord was a dominant 7 sharp 5, so this will be the same as that, but with a natural 7, or a 7th is raised a half step from where it was in that one. So augmented triad is 2 major thirds stacked. So we have the open string to the 4th fret, which is 2 whole steps, a major third. Then from the 4th fret to the 8th fret, which is another 2 whole steps, another major third. And then from here, a minor third up to D sharp, the major 7 of E. So now we have E, D sharp, C, G sharp, E. And the chord voicing for that, we can just take our major 7 chord and raise the 5th, which is also not super easy to play, but this is a major 7 sharp 5. And it's also, if you look at it, these 3 notes up here make up a G sharp triad, so it's like a G sharp triad over E. So that's an interesting thought, because then you can try this if you ever are playing this chord for whatever reason, because it sounds nice. You can think about triads over a bass note if you haven't used that concept before. This is an interesting concept. So like a G sharp over E makes an E major 7 sharp 5. Any way I know of a G sharp triad I can play, and it makes that chord. Just an interesting side note. So this chord, major 7 sharp 5, you can do it like that, or with a bar. The arpeggio followed by the chord. Arpeggio is open, and then 4th fret, 8th fret, 11th fret, 12th fret, 11th fret, 8th fret, 4th fret, open. Okay, the last one is equally strange sounding, but it's a really interesting chord. It's a diminished with a major 7. And this shows up in the chord scale that goes along with a major bebop scale, which, if you're not familiar, is a major scale with the sharp 5 or the flat 6 added in. So that's a really interesting scale, because the harmony that you can derive from it just by making your regular 7th chords actually gets pretty wacky in there because of that extra note. And this is one of the chords that I found because of that. scale and finding the harmony through that scale. So this is a really interesting voicing. So if you go to a diminished, fully diminished 7th voicing, and then you take the note that's on the 2nd string and you're going to raise that by a whole step. So it ends up looking like this, where you have kind of a D triad shape. I mean, it's an E flat, but it's the D, open D shape on E flat, up a half step, and then your first finger on E. So it's basically like playing an E flat triad over E, which is really kind of a harsh, intense sound, but it's really cool when you use it in certain contexts, like resolving two different chords around it in that scale that I was telling you about. Anyway, so the construction of this chord is a diminished triad, so open 3rd fret, 6th fret, 2 minor thirds stacked, and then this is a perfect 4th from the top note of the diminished triad, from the B flat, a perfect 4th up to D sharp or E flat, and then up to E at the octave. So major 7, flat 5, flat 3, 1, flat 3, flat 5, major 7, octave, major 7, flat 5, flat 3, 1. Okay, at this point, I'm sure that you're thinking, what about minor major 7? And you'd be right if you were thinking about that. I forgot that one, and I wanted to show you that, so here we go. Minor major 7. This is a chord that's derived from a couple different places, the melodic minor scale or the harmonic minor scale. And what it is a minor triad with a major 7 on it. So it's a delightfully tense and crunchy sounding chord. And this voicing is a little easier on the hands than some of the other ones, but if you take your minor 7 voicing and you raise the 7th from the 3rd fret to the 4th fret on the 2nd string, this is a minor major 7. And the construction on the 1st string, you have first a minor triad, so you have E, open, G, 3rd fret, B, 7th fret, and then D sharp, the major 7. So at the 11th fret, and then up to the 12th fret, back to the 11th fret, 7th fret, the 3rd fret, and open, minor major 7. So I didn't think it would be complete without that one, so there you go.